Hi, and welcome to Middle Way Urban Monastery and our Poetry as Prayer project that we've been working on this summer. I invited Rich Nelson, who is a friend and also a spiritual director here at Middle Way, to share some poetry.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Before I say anything else, I'd love to just start with a poem. And I selected one of my favorite poets, a poet named Joy Harjo. Joy was a recent poet laureate of the U.S. She is a feminist Native American poet. And this is a poem of hers, How to Write a Poem in a Time of War. You can't begin just anywhere, it's a wreck. Shrapnel in the eye of a house, a row of houses. There's a rat scrambling from light with fleshy trash in its mouth. A baby strapped to its mother's back cut loose. Soldiers crawl the city, the river, the town, the village, the bedroom, our kitchen. They eat everything or burn it. They kill what they cannot take. They rape, what they cannot kill, they take. Rumors fall like rain, like bombs, like mother and father tears swallowed for restless peace, like sunset slanting toward a moonless midnight, like a train blown free of its destination, like a seed fallen where there is no chance of trees or any place for birds to live. No, start here. Deer peer from the edge of the woods. We used to see woodpeckers the size of the sun, redbirds, and were greeted by chickadees with their good morning songs. We'd started to cook outside, slippery with dew and laughter, those smoky, sweet sunrises. We tried to pretend war wasn't going to happen, though they began building their houses all around us and demanding more. They started teaching our children their God's story, a story in which we'd always be slaves. No, not here. You can't begin here. This is memory shredded because it is impossible to hold by words, even poetry. These memories were left here with the trees, the torn pockets of your daughter's hand-sewn dress, the sash, the lace, the baby's delicately beaded moccasin still connected to the foot, a young man's note of promise to his beloved. No, this is not the best place to begin. Everyone was asleep despite the distant bombs. Tara had become the familiar stranger, our beloved twin girls curled up in their nightgowns next to their father and me. If we begin here, none of us will make it to the end of the poem. Someone has to make it out alive, sang a grandfather to his grandson. His granddaughter, as he blew his most powerful song into the hearts of the children. There it would be hidden from the soldiers, who would take them miles, rivers, mountains from the naval cord place of the origin story. He knew one day, far day, the grandchildren would return generations later over slick highways constructed over old trails, through walls of laws meant to hamper or destroy, over the libraries of the ancestors and the winds born in stones. His song brings us to his home place in these smoky hills. Begin here.
So why this
Yeah,
poem?
it's an intense poem, right? I mean, this isn't just exploring pastoral imagery or places of the heart. It's exploring places in history. It's exploring what that history has done to a people, how that people have found ways to survive and hold their story in the midst of that violence. She's pointing out like physical violence, social violence, religious violence, all of these wars that are going on, and the title of the poem, How to Write a Poem in a Time of War. This is the connection from poetry to prayer for me here, is that it's asking that question, where is the holiness in this and how does holiness survive? And I think we need to be listening to voices such as Joy Harjo's about that right now. We need to hear that story. And even though she's talking about like a particular history for a particular people and particular events, there's still, I believe, an element of the universal in it, which is we are all seeking to find a place within our own place.
All right.
Yeah.
So there is an essence of hope.
There is. Because at certain times in the poem, she says, this isn't the starting place for us. And by the end of the poem, she comes to begin here. This is the place. This is the element of hope. That story that was told by the grandfather to the grandchild still implanted within them. When so much else has been taken and lost, there's still that. That's our starting point. And as people of faith, I think we have a similar gift in our story. And, we talk about all of the things that are going on in our world, but as Christians, we have this common core story that is our starting place, that is our source of hope, too.
So when all else is gone, start at the beginning.
Start where we deserve to start. If what we're searching for is home, then start at the right door, right place.
Yeah, so when you read that in my mind, I was thinking, so many times we think of poetry as this romantic love poem or a sonnet, and that was not that.
It's not that. And
but that's where we need the language sometimes.
we do. I mean, I think that's why poetry is so powerful, is because it gives us the language that we need. Like, we could read a whole history, and would it ever get us to the beginning place that she gets us to at the end of this poem? Would it ever get us to the place that actually is the beginning place? And so that's why poetry is so powerful to me, is I think it gives us this like portal, this, this way to get from here to there in an extraordinarily quick and concise way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And spell her last name.
Harjo.
Harjo.
Joy Harjo.
Okay, thanks. And do you happen to have another one?
I do. I have a poem of my own. I'm a poet as well, and I wrote this poem that I think in some ways kind of is asking the same question, but in a different way and from my own experience. This poem is The Field of Belonging. Out beyond the field of belonging, in that quiet, solemn place where the bullfrogs sing ancient harmony over bass clefts of starlight, I lie in wait hoping to catch a glimpse of my oncoming self and leap in surprise, spinning my frame back into proper place. It is there I met you, dear friend, the one who would tell me my true name, the one I knew I had all along, but had never been spoken to me. Not the name given, but the name received, as surely as any other gift of grace. As surely as any other gift of grace. Buoyed by trillium and white ash, I glided along unseen, peeking through the dark wood of remembrance, the steep thicket of days, the unforeseen break giving way to meadow of light sourced 1,000,000 miles away, 1,000 years long past, all assembled for just this time, just this place. Holding within its bounds the last vestige of twilight being molded into dawn, catching my breath up and breathing it back to me, breathing new life into that dead place I was unaware even existed until it was already being lived back to life. Resurrection preempting the rightful role of my journey's last repose. Laughing and dancing, sang aloud, egging the bullfrogs on, daring them to a friendly duel. A croaking cacophony of counsel tracking mud through the pristine pages, joyously making mess of all I had brought so certainly to this gathering. And how I was unprepared for what I would find. How could I have known that what I yearned for had first yearned for me? That the drawing near I imagined was my own work was already being worked upon me. At last there was nothing left to do, nothing at least that I should do, but join in the dancing and singing and croaking and shining and giving and growing and mending and breaking that is the only creation the world ever has cared much for, the only life that beyond any life was ever finally worth living.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a different prayer.
It is, but it is a prayer. A pretty earnest one.
Yeah.
So that's why poetry and prayer go hand in hand for me, because in prayer we're searching for the words or something to express what it is. It is our true heart's longing to put in some form of communication with God, or at least with ourselves. Here's what's actually going on. Here's the actual place to begin.
Yeah. I don't know if it's age or I don't know. I find that I turn more and more to the poets for the language that I can always seem to find or know that I needed. And I'm so grateful for the many, varied poets that speak to so many different people, old and new.
It's a real gift.
It is.
As the church should be, and I think that's right. I was a poetry major in college. I knew the power of poetry at that time, and yet it's not really until I've entered into now what I understand to be kind of the second half of my life, that the power of poetry that I recognized existed as a young man is finally being realized within my own self. And
you knew it was there.
I knew it was there.
Took a little while.
Things take a little while sometimes.
Sometimes they do. Thanks. It's always good to hang out with you, my friend.
It's great. Thank you.
And we will continue to have these Poetry is Prayer recordings on Saturday mornings at 10 through the month of July, I think. I have enough folks who love poetry that want to share these.
Great. Look forward to seeing the others.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.